Cheat Code 1. The fastest way to power up your brain is with oxygen. Unaware of this, most people take shallow breaths throughout the day, causing their brains to use up to 20% less oxygen and work quite inefficiently. Research from Columbia University shows that just 2 minutes of deep breathing exercises can reduce stress hormones and significantly increase attention levels, and naturally, work efficiency. A simple yet effective breathing technique. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and pause for 4 seconds. Repeat this cycle 3 times. This is called box breathing, and by repeating it several times throughout the day, you will provide your brain with the fuel it needs. You use this technique before a presentation, before an exam, or in the middle of a busy day. You will notice that your stress decreases, your focus strengthens, and your brain works more efficiently. When you start using all the tips I've given you, you won't even believe the potential that emerges. Cheat Code 2. Teach. The fastest way to learn something is to teach it to someone else. This is called the Feynman Technique. When you try to explain new information to someone else in simple terms, your brain processes the information deeply, notices gaps, and strengthens connections. Teaching is not about testing your memory. Research shows that people who share what they've learned with others retain the information up to 90% longer in the long term. I know you're not a classroom teacher, but simply talking to a friend about what you've learned is enough. Doing this in writing is even more beneficial because it engages both the visual and motor pathways of the brain. You can start by writing about a piece of information you've learned in the comments. I would love to learn something new too. Cheat Code 3. Single tab. The biggest energy thief in your brain is distraction. Notifications, open tabs, and multitasking slow down your processor. In fact, your brain is not designed for multitasking. That's why you experience up to a 40% loss in efficiency every time you switch contexts. But the cheat code is simple: single task, single time slot. Neuroscience research shows that 25-minute uninterrupted focus blocks increase performance by 80%. So when you put your brain into single task mode, the turbo kicks in. A small tip: when you start working, close all distractions on your desk and set yourself a single task for that moment. Especially combined with cheat code 20-5-20, I will tell you soon. Your raised performance will surprise you more than you think. Cheat Code 4. Exercise. Just as your muscles weaken when you don't exercise them, your brain loses its power in the same way. A famous study on London taxi drivers revealed that those who memorized complex routes every day had a 10% larger hippocampus, or memory center. So the way to keep your brain in shape is to give it new challenges. Sudoku, chess, learning a new language, or playing a musical instrument. All of these are, of course, things that increase brain power, but we're going to go beyond these cliches. I'll give you tips on how to exercise your brain without spending time on it in your daily life. If you brush your teeth with your right hand, start doing it with your left hand. The same goes for eating. Every day, take just 30 seconds to try writing your name backwards on a piece of paper. Along with that, you can like the video by holding the mouse in your opposite hand, and your brain and my channel will both develop. Once you see how much your brain muscles have developed just by doing these small things, you'll want to take on more challenging tasks. Cheat Code 5. Break it down. The fastest way to strengthen your memory is to break down information and turn it into a story. MIT research has shown that these techniques make information 40% more memorable. The brain struggles to store raw data, but it remembers things that are connected to context and emotions for a long time. For example, memorizing a 12-digit number one by one is difficult, but when you break it down into groups of 3, it becomes much easier. Or, when you connect dry information to a story, your brain records it along with visual and emotional centers. When you do both at the same time, forgetting becomes almost impossible. Let me give you an example. Dry information, 1957-83. Story-linked version: a 19-year-old young man boards bus number 57 and meets an 83-year-old sage. I bet you won't forget this information by the end of the video. Cheat Code 6. Sleep. The cliche, "I don't sleep much because I have to work," is actually the biggest mistake that drains brain power. During sleep, the brain both consolidates information and cleanses toxins. Harvard studies have proven that students who sleep 7 to 8 hours score 30% higher on memory tests than those who sleep less. The hours you cut from sleep and add to your study time are actually pushing back the goal you'll reach at the end of your studies. In other words, 8 hours of sleep plus 2 hours of study is greater than 6 hours of sleep plus 4 hours of study. The reason is simple. The brain's RAM cleanup occurs at night. When you don't sleep, your brain becomes overloaded and your performance goes down. After several consecutive nights of insufficient sleep, feeling tired, distracted, and forgetful is no coincidence. Therefore, sleep is the easiest to implement and most critical factor on the path to success. Cheat Code 7, 20-5-20. The fuel for brain power is dopamine, but constantly scrolling through social media is like tricking your brain's reward system with cheap sugar. It gives you a short burst of energy but undermines your motivation in the long run. Create small delayed rewards. Work for 20 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, and after the break, work for another 20 minutes. This cycle is called the Pomodoro Technique and naturally balances the dopamine system. According to Stanford research, 60% of those who use this method can maintain their focus for much longer periods. However, one of the most important tips here is to stay away from social media during your breaks. Eating a small snack or listening to your favorite music would be much better. This way, your dopamine system will naturally balance itself, and you'll be able to work for much longer without your attention wandering. Cheat Code 8. Side by side with thoughts. Meditation is another form of mental muscle training. Even when practiced for just 10 minutes, the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain's attention center, begins to strengthen. Research conducted by MIT has shown that people who meditate regularly have increased gray matter density, which indicates an increase in information processing speed. The most common misconception is that meditation is about silencing thoughts, or meditation is just something that relaxes you. In reality, meditation is the skill of sitting alongside your thoughts. As you mindfully observe your breath, your brain's attention muscle grows stronger. Funny but true, those who say, "I can't do it," are actually the ones who need it the most. When you start using this code, your mind enters a clearer, more focused, and much more productive mode. Cheat Code 9. Movement. When your body moves, your brain gets stronger. Harvard research has proven that regular exercise can improve cognitive performance by up to 20%. This is because during exercise, more oxygen and blood flow to your brain, which increases processing speed. So every squat you do at the gym not only strengthens your glutes, but also your brain. Plus, you can do this without even going to the gym or working out like crazy. Simply standing up from where you're sitting and jumping for 30 seconds sends fresh energy to your brain. You've probably had a period where you were exercising. Do you remember how energized you felt?